Hi, it's Mako Fujimura, almost live from my Princeton studio on this beautiful day. And I am grateful for our journey together with through culture care and theology of making. My book, Art Plus Faith, The Theology of Making, came out a little over 2 years ago. And I'm so delighted to have so many conversations through my exhibits and through these avenues, through social media, and to be able to converse with you about the content of the book and the thesis of the book, which is really a theological underpinning of work of culture care in the world. And as I create beauty here in my Princeton studio, I am thinking about these principles that I talk about in the book, and Haejin and I just had an opportunity to speak at All Saints Church in Princeton about our journey to meet with Pope Francis in Rome, and then speak at the UK Parliament a week after. Uh, in our journey of bringing beauty and justice into the world. When we met with the Pope for private meeting, which was amazing, just meeting privately with one of the most influential leaders, Christian leaders in the world, is amazing. But what was more amazing was to get to know this person who cares for the poor and who loves beauty. And what he told us was with Haejin, Sister Dulce, and Sister Tina from Michigan, was that you are the creator of the good and the beautiful. And he exhorted us to continue our work. As we were leaving, I had a minute with him, and he said to me, looking at me in the eye, he said, as a creator of beauty, the world is going to push back against you. But keep going. Keep creating beauty. And as I thought about that, as I was leaving the Vatican compound, I reflected how many times have I heard that from a Christian leader or any leader? You are creating beauty, and that is enough. That is a call that you must take seriously, and you must keep going. And so here in my studio, this is what I continue to endeavor to do. Yesterday at All Saints, I spoke on John 12 and Mark 14, two passages that reflects very similar events. Mary of Bethany bringing her wedding nard jar and breaking it open to anoint Jesus before he is arrested and brought into Jerusalem to be crucified. This act is noted in all four of the Gospels. In Mark 14, Jesus' commendation to her is the greatest commendation anybody has received in the Bible. Upon seeing the disciples' reactions, that this woman barging into this meeting, all male elders meeting, before they are to go into their battle in Jerusalem, disciples did not understand that this was a way for Jesus to offer himself to the world as a sacrificial lamb in order to atone for our transgressions. But Mary intuited something was going to happen to Jesus, and she wanted to bring her best, the most expensive, important treasure that she owns, which is her wedding nard that she was to save up for her wedding day. And disciples' reaction is exemplified by what Judas notably said, that she could have sold this perfume, expensive perfume, about a year's worth of wages. So $40,000, $50,000, I don't know. That is being poured out, and the disciples were all indignant. She could have sold this to feed the poor. Now, I use extravagant materials here, gold and silver and Japanese materials from 17th century. I want to bring the best because for me, art is honoring the maker that gave me this gift to create beauty. So I'm using the best materials, and I've heard arguments such as, why aren't you serving the poor if you can afford to make art? Or sometimes it's more pragmatic than that. We can't afford art. And it's always the pragmatic questions in education, in businesses, in the church. Beauty is wasteful. So let's take care of the bottom line. Well, that kind of argument is the prevalent argument. But according to Jesus, what Mary did, her extravagant, even transgressive act of breaking open her wedding nard to anoint Jesus. And Jesus says in John 12, she has done what she could to prepare me for my burial. And the disciples probably said, what is he talking about? They were getting ready for battle, to enter into Jerusalem, to proclaim God's victory over the Roman Empire, and to right the wrong that their religion has failed to account for these things, these deeper realms of promise of hope faced with scarcity, the good news of the gospel. And they were confused, the disciples were. Why would Jesus commend this woman when we have given everything to follow him? And of course, Jesus' answer is very clear to the pragmatic answers of Judas. Leave her alone. She has done a beautiful thing to me. And whatever the gospel is told, what she has done will also be told. What an amazing statement that I fear we have forgotten. Whatever the gospel is told, the good news of Jesus' arrival, birth, arrival, his death and resurrection, and the church being birthed. Whatever the gospel is told, Mary's act will have to accompany that. What does that mean? Well, for me, it's to come into the studio every day to pour open this jar of extravagance of Nihonga materials, to paint every day faithfully, as the Pope exhorted me to do. To create beauty is enough, and to provide a portal into the new creation is a noble calling for anybody to pursue. For Creator of the good, like Haejin, providing justice to the oppressed and the marginalized, to give them hope, empower them. That is a noble call to be pursued. And beauty and justice and kintsugi come together of healing the fractures by pouring gold into those very fractures. That is our work for the kingdom to advance. And in my book, Art Plus Faith, I base my entire thesis of theology of making on John 11 and John 12. And that's the pinhole through which we can look at the entire narrative of the Bible, through creation to revelation, from creation to new creation. So when I heard the Pope exalt me as a maker of the beautiful, I felt that was a message that I had to convey to others. So I have been telling this to artists. Every time I encounter an artist, I tell them, hey, this is what the Pope told me. And yesterday at my church, I was able to share that with Haejin. And so I make this video to tell you that Creator of the good and the beautiful, to keep going. Because Jesus commands us to be like Mary, right? We are to pour out the best that we have. And the world may not understand it and even push back against it. But our act of extravagance done in faith will be commended by the one who receives that from us. And not only that, invites us to co-create into the new creation. One thought that I end my every lecture or sermon on John 12 or Mark 14 is this. The only earthly possession that Jesus carried to the cross is Mary's nard. You see, because he was arrested in Gethsemane and brought over for trial, he did not get to, for the first time in his life, to cleanse himself, wash himself before entering Jerusalem. Because he hung on the cross naked. The only earthly possession that he carried with him was Mary's aroma. This wedding aroma. So the centurion who pierced his side would have detected this aroma and he would have said, this is a wedding aroma. What wedding? You see, it's all about a wedding. And I'm going to be in a wedding in California soon, so I'll be speaking more about this and I'll share more about what I said to this couple. What wedding? Well, Jesus began his ministry at Cana in a wedding, right? And his journey into new creation is a promise that brings in the cosmic wedding between Jesus, the bridegroom, and us, the church, the bride. Jesus sacrificed so that we can be cleansed, we can be renewed. No matter what we have done, what kind of life we have led, Jesus marks us and sees the beautiful in us. So he invites us into this wedding, cosmic wedding of all time. And not only that, he says, you are the bride. You are the bride. I am here for you. I have given my life for you. And because of my sacrifice to justify the demand of the law. You are free now to be beautiful. So if that's the case, then we are invited to this wedding. And we are wedding planners, planning for this wedding. Every day here in the studio, I create so that maybe I can be on that list of artists invited. Maybe you're a musician. You can compose music for that day, not just for here in this side of eternity. You can write a book that would echo in the resonance of eternity, that perhaps a poem will be read on that day, celebrating this bridegroom and the bride coming together. That's the cosmic wedding that Jesus has brought into the universe and has promised to bring in, to usher in. The end time is not the end time. The end is our beginning. And so we can create, we can begin to celebrate that reality on this side of eternity now, faced with scarcity and people who are skeptical and doubtful, the darkness of this Darwinian survival that we have to face every day. And believe, actually dare to believe with Mary, that my job today is to bring the best and anoint Jesus. And that is enough. To be the creator of the good and beautiful is enough. And God will see that act and multiply that act and bring those things as a gift into the new creation in far more powerful ways than we can ever think or imagine right now. So journey with me as we think through this issue. This book will certainly help, but also through works of Embers International that Haejin and I are now involved in, that I have been grafted into this work of mercy and creating, bringing justice into the marginalized and oppressed. But also in your own communities and your own churches, and even if you're not religious, creating beauty is enough. Providing mercy to those who need that mercy voice is enough. Think about those things and journey with us as we prepare ourselves for a wedding, prepare ourselves for a cosmic wedding, and help us to journey into that, to help us to journey into that. I want to thank you, first of all, for being part of this conversation through this book. We have prepared a reader's guide to create culture care communities. Academy Kintsugi is also designed to create experiences for culture care communities to grow. And so be in touch with us. And if you have any thoughts or questions or feedback, please feel free to give us a feedback. We also have a newsletter, I Am Culture Care newsletter, that is available through iamculturecare.com site. So journey with us into a great adventure of creating into the new.